Hi, it's Leo from Made by Marley. Welcome back to our channel. Now today's question is, can you apply IOD inlays to Wicker? Have a wee look. I think you can. Anyway, watch along. I've already given you a spoiler and see me apply inlays to Wicker. Okay, so today this is a landfill save. So this is pretty much a trash to treasure, hopefully. These were really in the 60s and 70s, especially in the UK. My mum had one, my gran had one, my aunts had one, everybody had one of these. And can I just say, they were all pretty much as ugly as this. But back in the day, our mothers and grandmothers and aunts all thought they were lovely. My mum had one sat at the end of her bed. She used to keep bedding in it. I want to try and make this over. This is retro vintage because of the era, but I'd like to put it back a little bit more and make it just vintage if I can. I'm going to have to, there's something that feels not good under here. We'll get to proper investigation in a moment. Let's just see what it is that doesn't feel good under here. Yeah, I have no idea what this is. But whatever it is, it has to go. It's a lot of green powder. Could be anything. Yeah. I quite enjoy this part where there is a cable tie that somebody's just attached onto it, you know, to keep and the cable tie is broken, so now it's just a cable tie. It's structurally in good condition for its age. Matt did a little run and repair one at the bottom just to screw in the sort of connector that you screw the feet in. So it wasn't a major repair. I'll be removing this handle. I'll be taking the top off. And today's colour, now I don't want everybody to faint because I am going to make this look much more grungy, much more aged and much more old. But today's colour is boom, white. I'm putting white on.
Let's just say it was a brand new can that she's never opened before.
Marley says it was a brand new can I'd never opened. Yeah, so I'll be using white today. Why white? I think that I'm going to be putting inlays onto it. I want the inlays to really pop on it. I think we're going to struggle enough putting inlays on the wicker without making it any more difficult. I want to make it aged around the edges. I want to do stuff to it, so I'm going with white. I was going to go with a dirty yellow. I thought a dirty, agey yellow, but when I opened up the front in the middle, I thought, we're not that far away from that already, and I don't particularly like it. So, have I ever put inlays on wicker? No, I haven't, and I don't think anybody else has either. I searched the internet, I looked on Pinterest. There was no words to the wise about how to do it, but I'm not deterred by that. I think that if nobody else has done it, well, this is a good thing, isn't it? So this may never, this may maybe never fly, I don't know. So what I'm going to do is, Martin and I are going to take this outside and ascertain what that green substance is for a start off, get rid of all the top fabric, ready for painting. And I think you don't need to see me do the first coat of white. I'm going to paint everything, the whole thing, the legs, the feet. I particularly like the spray job at the bottom. It's all sprayed with gold here, and it's got this gold part. It's all nasty. It all needs painted, and I think what I will do the middle, well, a real pop of colour, something completely different, maybe a hot pink, or who knows, a little bit of a jewel or something that makes me happy in the inside. I'm actually doing this for myself. This is for my own house. It's to go in a little hallway, and is it, Martin says? Yes, Martin. It's for us. You know where that seating is, and I said to you, I want something. Oh. Yeah, it's going in our house, Martin. So I'm a very discerning customer. I want something quite specific. Now, most of my house is bohemian and vintage and bright, but there is a part in my house which I think gives a chance for the whole house to work and rest, where it's white and it's got a tiny blue design. It's quite pared back, natural wood floor, and this is going to sit under a window. So this is actually for me, unless somebody wants to pay me thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds, and I will sell it. But it is for me. Yeah. So we'll get on, we'll strip it all bare, and I'm just going to undercoat it with its first coat of white. It's probably going to need, with inlays, you need 2 coats of your ordinary that you would do to do your furniture. So your 2 coats of your your canvas coat and your primer coat, 2 coats, and when you apply your inlays you need a 3rd coat of paint. So I'll probably just go on, skip all this. This is going to be quick for you today. You're going to get a wee bit of a breather. Woohoo!
They don't like the short ones.
They don't, Matt says they don't like the short ones. This is going to be relatively quick, so I'm going to go and I'm going to clean it out, and I'm going to give it 2 solid coats on the outside of white, and then we're going to get to designing what we do, and then we're going to get to the shabby and all the good parts and the top, etc. But we have to do all this first, and plus I have no idea what that could be horrible. But anyway, Martin, I feel like that's your job.
That is my job, yes.
Okay, see you in a minute. Okay, so I've came back on camera because, as per usual, sometimes with landfill saves, you get into it and you go, maybe this wasn't the best idea. Although it was structurally good, it had the top, for example, when we removed the fabric from the top, it was as if there had been a layer of probably foam and it had been under there so long that it had decayed to dust. So that was fine. We got rid of that. Well, Martin got rid of that. Then to be able to get the fabric off, we had to take the trim off the side. But on removing the trim, it hadn't just been covered once, it had been covered, I think, a couple of times before, and there was plastic, because obviously originally these things had plastic over the top of it, so there was a whole load of, but it was just staple upon staple upon staple. First of all, there was the tacks to get all this trim off, then there was the staples. So Martin's got the trim off and it's very dubious, but before I moved on, I'd thought of flipping it to the smoother edge for the top, but this side is very slick, so I've decided to stick with this side. So it's quite bumpy, but it's still got another coat of white to go on it, and there's going to be the inlays on top of that, and I don't think it'll be the end of the world. It's just that once you get this far into a project, you go, right, okay, we've already spent quite a large amount of time just getting it to here. Now, what else has happened? So this is sitting on there just drying. You can already see the difference in the colour. So that's it with its first coat of white. But if I do this, you can see what it looked like. Now, there is no simple way to paint wicker other than take your time. You need a nice long bristled brush with plenty of give in it. And the best way to do it is, I think, is just to swirl your brush around and around and around and around and around. I don't mind that I'm adding quite a lot of paint to this, because the less texture I have, I think, will probably be easier when I apply the inlays. When it comes to feet like this, you just do this, just from every angle, and the feet obviously are going to need the 2 coats as well. So this is as its first coat, but I'm just going to have to keep going around it, and the time it's had 2 coats, we'll be ready to apply the inlay. Martin is going to reapply this trim for me now on this top, because this top's only had 1 coat of white. This trim will go back on, and then the whole trim and this will have a 2nd coat. This will probably have 2 coats, because it's all I'll say is this was the filthiest, most disgusting, I think one of the most disgusting things I've ever had to deal with. It's absolutely disgusting. I think even at one point they might have had food in this ottoman, I can't tell, but it's all been thoroughly cleaned. I cleaned it with, in the UK I use a product called it's called Purdy and Fig. It's a cleaner, but it's an all-natural cleaner. It's environmentally friendly. It's made with essential oils. You just get the little jar, you pour it in and you top it back up with water, so it saves on plastics as well. This is glass. I just used that, but I also had a basin of hot soapy water, and I just cleaned it all out until there's no odour, there's no bits of yucky stuff that I couldn't even identify. So it's gone now.
It's sparkly.
It's sparkly inside, even though it's a nasty yellow. I think what I'm going to do with the inside is I'm going to have a quick look and see if I can get, you know, the peel and stick sort of wipeable for the inside. Not that I'm planning to put food in mine. I'm not doing that. Oh, can you see the leaves? They're falling down because there's gaps in the top of the table. Anyway, I digress. So I'm just going to get on, and then I'll get to, you know, we'll be ready for an inlays. I just wanted you to know that sometimes these projects are never quite what you're going to, you know, once you start unpicking them, you think this is a 5-minute thing.
But it's worth it.
It is worth it, as Mark said. And plus, at the end of the day,
It's not that
this was going in a hole in the ground. Just awful. So, you know, we may as well try and make the best of what we've got. And I think it's going to be nice. And I already think, even though I'm a white, it just makes me go, oh, I'm already kind of going, oh my goodness, how nice and clean does it look white. So I'm not saying that I'll be now a new lover of white, but for what I'm doing today, I think white is enough. So I'll get on and paint it and we'll come back in a minute. Fabulous, it's all painted white. Now that isn't for the faint-hearted, I've got to say. I think there's a reason why people spray Wicker, but I don't spray things. Not for any reason other than I'm really bad at it. I mean, Martin, I'll vouch for it. I'm really bad at it. No. And anyway, I like the feeling of actually painting. So I did it. It's had 2 solid coats. The second coat, what I will say is, if you have a bit of water in the spray, it kind of helps it move around. It kind of helps to fill it out. Now it's all been done. The lid is not attached because I'm not going to attach it. I'm going to do them in 2 separate pieces only because I want to put the adhesive in it when all this is dry and done, and it'll be easier without the lid. So I'm going to set the lid to the side. I'm going to get a blanket and lie this down on its back so that we can start applying the inlays onto the Wicker. I'm putting it on a blanket just to protect the finish. I'm only going to be doing the front and the 2 sides because the back is going to be against the wall. If you're doing Wicker and all sides are showing, then obviously you have to plan for that. Now, I don't know if I explained, the transfer I'm going to be using is obviously it's IOD, but it's the melange transfer, and there's some really nice sort of lots of pieces and parts. I've seen this done lots of different ways, so I am going to try my utmost to do the best with this that I can. So I'm going to pick kind of big things for the sides, put the top to the side away at the moment, and we'll get to the side when we're ready to get to it. But let's just set up with everything we need. Now, I would suggest you need a kind of pokey paintbrush because inlays are always applied with either a water spray or a wet cloth. But I'm going to be kind of mixing between a wet cloth and a wet brush because I'm going to have to try and poke my paint. Now, I understand by applying the inlays onto the Wicker, there is going to be a slight amount of distortion because the way that Wicker works is it's going to be that way. But I think that's going to be okay. We're kind of working with that. So I'll just set up and we'll get going. So I've just opened it up, and if you've never used an inlay, this is how they come. They come with a sheet to protect them in between. So there's quite a lot of choice. I think I'm probably going to keep some of the smaller things for the top. So I was thinking maybe this one for the front, and maybe these 2, where are they? No, I don't think. This one for the front. So I'll just sit it down here while I just rifle through here. Sunflowers. What's this? I'm looking for something for either side. There's some really, really nice ones. If you're a bit like me, I really like inlays. They give a completely different feel to a piece than a transfer does. They're not the same as a stencil or a stamp that you get lots and lots and lots of value out of it. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for these 2 big flowers. I knew I'd saw them somewhere. These here. If you're wondering what this is, normally I'm covered in paint anyway, but this is also pumpkin spice latte that I spilled all over myself today. I was having one of those moments that you do. I got all the way from the car to my daughter's house, up a flight of stairs, went in the door and spilled it. Now, I'm just going to show you, because it's got a grid format, you can cut along the grid. That's why I just didn't. But I think I'm going to have to kind of like go around this leaf and just do that. Set all your inlays to the side. Make sure they do not get damp or wet. You want them nice and dry. What have I learned? I have lots of videos, I think, especially some of my old, like if you go back a wee while ago, I went through a phase of really using quite a lot of inlays. Just kind of sizing them out. If you buy an inlay and it's not this one and it's got a repeat pattern like indigo floral, there's a little border that you have to cut all the way off, all the way around, so you'll see that when you go to put it together. And I think I've used indigo floral in a yellow piece before, that I'm just kind of getting an idea of where things are going to go. And my big fancy schmancy one, let's just have a look at this, what needs cut off of it. Nothing. So just check I've got it the right way up. That might help. You know what I'm like. I'm prone to getting things upside down. And we're saying that this is centre-ish. Yeah, I think this is what I'm going to kind of do at the front. Actually, do you know what? I don't even think it needs those. I think that just makes it look too busy. Yes, I just said too busy. What, I'm using white and things are getting too busy? I think you'll want to take my temperature after this. Martin, would you say that that's probably there and thereabouts? See the old paintbrush method there? Yeah, I'm saying that's good. Right, okay, so I'm doing that. I'm just going to kind of, just because I think I've got my positioning quite right. What you do is you need your paint, same colour you've used. And I don't know how this is quite going to go with Wicker, because with a flat surface, and we'll get to this one, get to the top, and you'll see how much easier it is, because, I mean, I'm making this quite complicated today, but I can't help myself. I'm making sure that I've got plenty of paint, but you don't want too much paint either, because it can make them blurry. So how do you do that with Wicker? I think there's just a kind of, I'm kind of putting it on and kind of offloading it now. I think that's good there. Now I'm just going to do this and flip this side back onto there. I'm not going to start patting anything down until I've got the other side applied. It's the same deal. I don't want to have a great big line down the middle that hasn't got anything on it. I'm just going to do something like this. Now, plenty of paint, but not too much. And making sure that you've kind of got it all in the Wicker. Now, as I said, I searched on YouTube. I put IOD Inlays on Wicker. No. Went on Pinterest, IODs with Wicker. No. Went on to Google, did the same thing. Now, there might be somebody out there that's done it, and they might watch this and go, oh, that's not how I did it, but this is how I'm doing it. So we'll see. Right, now, I think that's pretty good. And I am just going to do this now and smooth this side over onto my Wicker. Now, if it was a flat surface, you could just crack on like you normally do, which was using a wet cloth. But what I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to do both. The wet cloth, what it does is, if you've never used them before, is it starts to bed it down in the paint that you've applied. I would take your time at this point, making sure you can tell. You need a reasonably quite wet cloth. You can tell when it's done. You can see it's slightly grey here. I'm going to do this, it's darker. It just, you can tell when you've gone over it properly with a cloth. Now, I think these words here may bite the dust on the Wicker. I don't know. I can't exactly tell how this is going to work. We might be pleasantly surprised, and I think it's good to kind of push the boundaries. I think this is why I should have practiced. Martin's laughing, but it's not something I'm given to doing. Now, I've just got a brush here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm just now going to go round it all and just making sure, because I want to try and get it into the Wicker if I can. I've got the brushes wet, so I'm just pushing down into the Wicker. I'm trying to keep remembering where I've been before. I think my brush has got a slight pinky tinge back to Brushgate. So I think I can kind of see where I've gone. Now, when you apply inlays, they're live underneath this. You won't be able to rub it with sealer or You have to really treat them carefully because it's chalk paint. It's a chalk-based paint underneath here, which is live and unsealed. So as soon as you start kind of messing around with it, you can smudge it. So we are going to have to spray this piece. Even before I put like maybe some dark wax and things on it, I'm going to have to spray seal it. The top is a different kettle of fish. I'm still going to spray that actually, but now I'm just kind of pushing it down. I'm being quite brutal. Now, if you don't have inlays and you're thinking, I'd like to do something like this, I've got one of these, but I'm not going to put the money out for the inlays, or I want to do something different. If you refer back to the peacock piece that I did with decoupage paper, you can decoupage wicker. I'm not sure about stamping. I don't think stamping would have the same sort of effect. I mean, I don't think so, but definitely I don't think there's any reason why. Well, we'll see whether this works, won't we? Now, what you do with them once you've got them all pushed in, and this is the same whether you're on a flat surface or a bumpy surface, you leave them until they're completely dry. And when they're completely dry, you just put water on them to peel them back off. Now, everybody's scared to use inlays. People say, I have inlays, but I've not used them. Why are you not using them? Use them. Get the joy out of them at least. I had these in my stash and I wasn't quite sure what to do with this. And as I said, it's an unusual piece for me to begin with because it's white. But it just happens to be I have a small white patch in my house, just a tiny patch. It's just a very small patch, isn't it, Matt? And it's the only kind of tasteful part of the house. But I think it needs it just to let the eye rest a wee bit before you're assaulted, before you go in another room. But yeah, now I just want to make sure again that I've gone along these parts of the words. I think these are going to fall foul of the wicker probably. And if they do, we'll just put another inlay in the centre of those. So I won't be crying into my cornflakes if it doesn't work. Right, it looks a slight pinky tone. That's my brush, and I think that actually did kind of help me, knowing where I've been to push it all in. Right, so I'm going to stick one on the both sides next. You don't need to see me apply anymore. You've seen that one until we get to the top, and then on the top we're going to apply like a sort of pattern of them in all different directions. So there we go. We'll just leave that alone. Okay, so I picked some of the wee sort of smaller flowers for the side. I wasn't going to film this, but why not? And I'm just going to put it centre. Whether it is centre or not, I don't know. Bang on, is it, Martin? I'm sure it's not. So again, because I know it's wicker, I'm pushing down. I've actually got a better angle from this side to see how much it's going into the wicker. So it's just the same process until we get to the top. The top's different. Top, if you've never used inlays before, the top's going to probably be more what normal people do. I mean, well, not normal, the kind of normal sort of thing. Now, I've also got videos where I've applied in the IOD Inlays onto glass, and you just use dishwasher and Mod Podge for that. I've always had really good success just doing that, not trying to change it up, just doing that. I've also got a video where you can do a fine finish, you can do a distress finish, you can do a blend finish. You don't have to have one solid colour to apply. The only thing is, once you've done your blended surface, you need to apply it with a top coat. And I use my normal French chic, but not the tough top coat, just the French chic top coat I use for that. And you just put it on your blended finish, do the same steps, paint on your top coat, apply your inlay, do your water, let it dry, but don't walk away from that one. You have to be kind of there and thereabouts all the time watching it, because the paper can stick. So you just have to kind of keep every so often. What I do is just have a wee check. Don't leave it too long and then remove it. And I've also had brilliant results with that too. So I'm not scared of using inlays, and I don't know why people are so scared. I think it's maybe because, and I've got to admit, I've done this. Once I'd had done inlays for a few times and I'd had really good results, and one night I came over to the shed to finish a piece, and I didn't have my glasses on, and it was the Griselle, what's it called? Giselle Toile. It's a very pale bird white sort of inlay, and didn't have my glasses on, and I applied a whole row on a dresser the wrong way around. I was applying the checked part, and I painted over the actual inlay. And once you've done that, your inlay's ruined. There's no way of fixing it. It's just ruined. So always be really careful that you're making sure that you're putting the paint side down. And that's the only thing that I think can go wrong. Just make sure you leave them to dry. I know you've seen me do that lampshade recently last week actually, when I het it up. That's not the way to go. Don't do things like that. That's not something I would do on furniture. It was just because I was just having fun with it and I was trying to hurry up the process. But when it's furniture, things like this, I would do it properly, which is let them dry naturally. Let them dry and peel them off. Unless you're using a top coat over the top of a blended or distressed finish, then keep an eye on it. But I have all these videos. I have loads of videos on these kind of things. So if you're not sure, just go back and have a wee look through. I mean, sometimes, there's a whole...
I'll make a little playlist and put the description. It'll be in the description box.
Martin says he'll make a wee playlist and put it in the description box. I've done something on just about everything. Unfortunately, I've never done this in Wicker. So as I said,
first time for everything.
First time in everything. I could be crying into my cornflakes in 5 minutes.
We'll soon find out.
Right, so I really am this time going off just to do the other side because you don't need to see me do this again. While my inlay's drying on this side, because I can't do the other side right now, I decided I was going to give myself a wee bit of a stripy leg. Now there's a bit of fun. So how would you do that? I just start up the top. I understand I need to paint in here. It doesn't look the prettiest, but I was going to do that next. I wasn't going to show, and then I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm measuring the masking tape for my next row. Just line it up and twirl it around and rip it off. Just make sure that's inside there and it's not out of it. And again, just using your masking tape as your little marker, go around it again and rip this off. Now when I got to the bottom, bring that one in slightly so it's not overlapping. I realised that I wasn't going to get that much, so I just brought it up slightly. Let me just kind of give a wee sort of, yeah. And I just did the little toes with my masking tape. And I'm just going to do this, and I probably will do them a sort of, I'll show you, I'll mix up a paint, a sort of charcoal grey, and that'll just give another little bit of, well, oomph. Okay?
Zhuzh.
Zhuzh, man, zhuzh, you're quite correct, zhuzh. Yeah. Okay, so I'm on to the top now, and I've kind of laid out what I think my design is going to be. It all kind of works apart from maybe these scissors, which I'm not entirely sure, but I think I'm going to put them in anyway because I quite enjoy them. Now, how do we kind of keep this the way it is? I think the only way I can do it is if I just kind of move these down a wee bit just now, move that over a wee bit, and I'll start up here with the bees. Now, this is exactly how you should normally put a transfer on. You can see better what I'm actually doing here. You can see how much paint I'm applying. It's not too thick. It's not enough either. It's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It just has to be just right. If it's too much and it gets smeary. And I'm a wee bit concerned about the Wicker because I was thinking more about it and thinking where it all sits into the holes of the Wicker. I think there may be a case of there's too much paint in there. I don't know. I mean, these are all trial and error things, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. It's drying at the moment. Now, that is perfect. I'm not going to wet cloth any of these until I've got out all of them on. So I'm just going to take my time. And I think this is the thing with these kind of things. Don't rush them. Just take your time. You've got enough time to go back over it with the water while you do this. So don't start freaking out and thinking I've got to have it all done instantly. That's not the case. I'm just going to move these flowers over a wee bit just so that I still know where my design's going. It's just I want to make sure that I've got enough paint. So again, I'm just putting it on, smoothing it out. The smoother you apply your paint, the less wrinkles you'll have in your inlay. But to be honest with you, with inlays, if there's a little bit of a wrinkle, it just adds to that sort of vintage agey look. And this is actually quite, I mean, I dare say, farmhouse for me. I mean, minus the wicker, obviously, but try not to get, if you do see any wrinkles in your inlay, try and get them when you can get them. Like there's one there. Now, you shouldn't lift it back up. You just shouldn't do this. This is bad practice, but I just don't want the words all messy. Right, okay, so moving on to my scissors. You can see what I'm doing. I don't need to, for once, I don't feel the need to labour the point. You can see exactly what I'm doing. I just want to get so far along so that I can just show you me rubbing them on. I was actually quite realistic with this. It hasn't, I mean, it took a long time to paint the wicker, but it hasn't been one of my usual, oh, I'm going to add a million different things now. Well, I'm not finished it yet, you never know, but where I currently sit, I'm kind of happy with it. I'm just going to have a wee look at this edge here just to make sure, yeah. I'm just going to smooth out my scissors. Now, on with these bulbs. I quite like the way they were on the sheet, the natural spacing. Usually I'm all about, you know, making it unusual and different, but the natural spacing of these seemed to work for me, so I thought, well, I'm not going to mess with it. It's just going to be, I think this is going to be actually just making sure. Oh, see, look, it's already started to do that there. That was quite naughty. I think this is going to be quite nice in the hall. Martin, do you think this is going to be nice in the hall?
Oh, yes, darling.
He went, oh, yes, darling. Put the strawberries up here. And as you can see, I'm managing to identify all these things as well this week, which is a good sign. Yeah. What do you mean, yeah, Martin?
The job is yet young.
He says the job's yet young. Stick that. I wanted it kind of like it was a kind of. Oh, obviously, don't be shoving it around the way I just did there. I think these are pumpkin. Are they pumpkins? I'm doing it already. What? No, they're not pumpkins. I can see they're not. Can I just rewind that there? These are not pumpkins. They're. Hang on, just check there's enough paint under here. If it's kind of doing that, you know you've not got enough. It's because I'm doing this sort of patchworky effect. Normally when you put a big sheet of inlays on, it's one big sheet and you don't have to kind of be doing all this. Are the pumpkins right, Matt? Is that the right way up? Martin came up behind me when I was laying these out a minute ago and some of them were upside down. Which is a good job. Now, I won't go any further than this. I'll just show you how much water you need to put on. And I always think inlays are much better with a cloth. You can use your mortar mister, but I think a cloth, a nice soft cloth, does the job. And I like to pat. Patting them beds them down into the paint. Patting them. And then give them a wee wipe if you think there's a wrinkle there. But patting beds them down and gets them started to activate. And as I said, you can tell, like if you look at these strawberries, they're sort of grey at the moment. But as soon as I start to pat them with the water, they get much darker. That's it. That's the job. That's what you want to do. It's easier with their coloured inlays, but I'm just going to give this a wee bit more of a smooth than a pat because it's words. Now, there. Now, that's all I'm going to do. You've seen me do it. You know what you're doing now. Inlays, there's no magical secret medicine that makes them work. They're not that difficult and they really aren't that tricky. And they're not that difficult to apply either. So go forth if you have inlays and use your inlays because they're really not that scary. And there's no reason to keep things in your craft stash that you're scared to use. Just use them. The first time I used them, I hadn't read anything about them. Actually, you probably can go back to the piece of furniture I did. It's the piece of furniture was called the Dame. It was a great big unit. I did an orangey red and I put the indigo floral behind it. I'd never used an inlay before. I never read the instructions. I just went for it and I found them the best and simplest thing ever to apply. And that piece of furniture sold in the first week for a lot of money. So I had a bit of a love in with inlays after that for a while. Yeah, I think that's just the only thing I can think of where people don't use them is because I think it's because they put them on the wrong way round, or they're trying to put them over a decorative finish on their paint and they're using top coat and they've done that and it hasn't worked out. And if I was you, I would just do with the bog standard paint first. 2 coats of your base coat, 1 coat to apply your inlays. Apply them with water and a cloth like this. When you go to take them off, it's exactly the same thing. Apply the water, pull them away. That is it. There isn't any other mystery or mystic arts about it. So I'll go and do this. I'm going to let these dry. I'm going to go away and have my tea. By the time I come back, these will be ready to peel off. And obviously, the elephant in the room, we'll see whether the Wicker's worked. I know for sure I'm going to have a nice top, so we're okay. If all else fails, we'll have a nice top. I don't know what we'll do with the Wicker. We'll just have to kind of, I don't know, we'll wing it, but we'll see what we do. Okay, so this is the moment of truth. I haven't taken any of the rest off the Wicker. I just thought we'd do it together and, well, we can cry in our cornflakes if it's all gone wrong. So once you've applied, it doesn't matter whether it's on Wicker or on a flat surface. To get it, once they're dry, to get them back off, you need to wipe it again to wet it to help it peel off. So let's just do this again. I'm not sure. I've convinced myself it's not going to work. So let's just see. Now, the trick is with these, I always think, is to go quite slowly. So let's. I think it has worked. Let's just get this side off as well. This side here's a bit stuck. Just let me. Oh, it's the suspense filled, isn't it? We have yet to find out whether you can put inlays on Wicker. I'm thinking so far that you can apply inlays to Wicker. There's kind of like divots in here, obviously with the Wicker, the paint that was applied, but I don't mind that. At least the inlay has worked. Just pull it really gently. Now you can keep this and you can use it again. You can use the inlay, well, realistically, probably another once. I have had projects where I've used them 4 times, but this one's good as well because I've used it on white, which... Now, guys, I'm quite giddy about that. Martin, do you think that's worked?
I'm looking at it in real life as well at the top of the camera. I think it's perfect.
You think it's okay?
I think it's more than okay.
There we go. Word, guys, you can. I'm just going to move my cloth down here. You can put inlays on Wicker. Now, are they all going to come out as good as this? Let's see. There's some kind of like little indentations here where the paint has had, because normally with paint you would kind of make sure you smooth that out, but the paint needed to be thick to apply the inlay. So, you know, I can live with that. Let's see what the side ones have done. Yeah. How are we going to do this, Matt? Just kind of see if we can do it this way. I'll kind of just wet it and see the little side flowers. I'm pleased because nobody likes to waste materials. I mean, no one really. But I think maybe I'd said to myself, I was going to practice, get a little spare bit of inlay and practice on some wicker before I did this, but then I just didn't. Yeah, this looks like I can see what's happening with this divot. The paint's coming off, you know, on the inlay, and that's what's giving it that sort of kind of indentation. Are we thinking that's bad, or I'm thinking that's okay? So yeah, this another one has came out fine as well. Well, I'm just going to try the last one now because I've got this far. I've got that invested with you. Let's just flip it round. Oh, this way. Martin, can you see that?
Yeah.
So just wet it. What I did with this is I put it outside. It was kind of windy before tea. It had already been on for a good hour. You have to read the packets on Inlays. If you live in a warm climate and they're dry, then you can peel them off. But I've had good success just leaving them overnight before as well. I mean, it doesn't need to be a specific time that you remove them, but I put them outside where it was nice and windy and let them kind of dry outside. If they get a bit stuck, just wet the edges. Yeah, there we go. Trying to get a good grip so you can see. Oh, I'm pretty pleased with that. I think we can say
it's official.
I think we can say you can apply inlays to wicker. I'm just going to move that to the side, and let's have a quick look. Just need to move this. What to do with your inlays once that you've used them once is lay them down flat and let them dry, and you will be able to. Martin, am I too far away there? On you come away over. I'm just wetting my cloth again. I'm not going to make you watch all of these, but we'll just pick some and we'll peel them off and we'll see what's happened. In theory, these ones should be perfect. I bet these are the ones that don't work out, but I've never had them not. So look at that, guys. Sweet as a nut. Perfect. Oh, I don't want to keep you watching, but I think it's something quite therapeutic watching them come off. Now, when you remember these are live, so don't touch up against these with your wet cloth or you'll smear them, and you don't want smearage. There we go. And shall we do these? Jan knew what these were earlier. Oh, God.
Did not say what they are.
No, but I know what they are. I've got a picture of this in my house. Oh, it's not celeriac. I have no words for my memory. I'll get back to you what they are. There we go. These have come out nice and crisp. So I'm going to remove these. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let them settle overnight. Now remember, as I said, don't touch your wet cloth on the live inlays. You'll smear them. You have to kind of be direct where you have your cloth. But I'm going to let them dry overnight. But what I'm actually going to do with these is I'm going to spray seal them, because when you start, you can wax them, and I have sealed them just before with a paintbrush and have never had any problems. But I'm going to spray seal it anyway because of the wicker. I want to be able to seal the whole piece with the chalk paint on it and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray seal it, and then, but I am going to come back with some wax and other paint, but I just want to seal these so that they're all sealed down and perfect, and they're not going to smear no matter what I do. So I'm going to get on and remove the rest of these. as much as therapeutic as it is, I'm sure you're probably thinking, right, okay, well, I've seen enough, but they've came out really nice. And I'm actually pretty chuffed about the wicker. I will be shouting that from the rooftops, and then somebody else will come along and say, oh yeah, I've done them on wicker before plenty of times. And I will be like, oh, I thought I'd done the wicker. There we go. Just like that. So I'll get on and do the rest of this. I think this is going to be, I know it's black and white, it's not my usual, but I'm really pleased with it. I think it's going to be nice. I think I might use a stamp just to go around this right in here, like it's a sort of, it's not just out in the middle of nowhere, and we'll do that tomorrow once I've sealed it. We'll put a stamp around here with some ink just to finish that part off, because if not, it's just kind of in the middle of nowhere, and I'd like it sort of kind of almost a frame around it. So we'll do that tomorrow, but this is it for tonight. I'm just going to let it dry overnight and then seal it tomorrow morning, and then we'll give it a couple hours for the fumes to go away, and then we'll get on with the rest of it. Okay, so it's a new day. Last night what I did was, just before I left the studio, I gave this a good seal twice of a spray sealer. So this has all been sealed, the top's been sealed, all the wicker, the whole thing has been sealed. So I'm just going to put this up to the side just now, because I know I was going to put a bright pop of colour in it, but I have this, which is this sort of peel and stick paper, peel and stick wallpaper. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let me see if I can try and do it so you can see what I'm doing. Back that up against the wall. This is just about measuring it out. It's just to really freshen it up. It's just to make it look a little bit nicer. So measuring it out is probably going to be, just going to put the excess on the side just now. It's actually, I think I'll put my first strip on a little bit wider, the actual size of the strip, because that way it'll bring it slightly, hopefully. Put my glasses on, that might help. Oh, hang on, I'm having a hair malfunction. There we go. So that it's got a slight lip on both sides, so that when I do the sides, I can bring this down onto it. Now, I'm not worried about this particularly matching. All I'm doing is freshening it up. So with anything like these kind of things, just get a sort of rough idea of size. It's quite thick to sort of get into the space, but I think you can get a rough idea. I just want a rough idea of size. I don't want to underestimate it and it be wrong. So I'm going to cut it about here, just as a sort of guide. Now these kind of things always have lines on the other side. So let's get this sort of, the nearest sort of line to this little cut here. I think we'll go along here, and then you just kind of have to guess at this part here, which is always tricky for me. So I have just over there, I'll just go and get it. Do you know, these things are always really difficult for me to get the edge. I'll try the other side. Just in that little white box just beside your hand there, Matt, see that one? There should be a transverse, a squeegee thing, a white one that we use for the silhouette. I don't know, Matt, so haha, that's what I'm looking for, Matt. Now, okay. I need to take that out of my mouth. I can't hear what I'm saying. What I'm trying to do with this is, and this isn't easy, and this is not easy to do on camera and talk and do everything at once. However, I shall forge on. I just want a little bit of this to start with. You can see I'm not peeling it all off, just till I get it into, and this might take you a couple of minutes. I am going to have to do some corner cuts. I just want to make sure I've got a slight lip on either on both sides. Let me just check what it's like on this side. Corner cuts, let's just have a wee look. I'm just going to do, you always want to go before your cut, not after it, so something like that should work nicely. And the same here, bring it up to your thing and before it, not after it. So I'm going, you can see I'm going before this, not after. If I do this here, there'll be too big a gap, so you have to go and pull it tight and just kind of, you have to be a wee bit kind of before it kind of cut. Now this isn't going to work because it's going to be more at one side, and this is going to take a little bit of a minute to get this. Once you've got it going and you've got more, can I just start again there and see if I've got a little bit on both sides? Yes. Now squeeze that back down in there. If you've ever applied vinyl, like with a silhouette, it's very similar to this. You're just making sure that you don't get any lumps and bumps on the papers. Now, I dare say it wouldn't matter too much, but as I said, I'm a discerning customer. I want this to be nice. And plus, this really gives it a chance to kind of freshen up because I know how dirty this was. So I'm just going to peel the rest off. I'm just going to go for it now. There we go. Now, oh, look at that. It's a little bit... Hang on a minute. Actually, do you know what? I'm not going to bother. I'll fit a little bit in. It's slightly short. So... when I put this side here, I'm going to have to bring my side down at this side a little bit longer. What did I do with my scissors? So you can see what I'm doing. I don't know if you need to see me do all of this. The next thing I'll do is I'll cut the panel sides for both sides. I'll stick them on, then the inside, and then we'll get to the outside. But it was just to show you what I was doing on the inside. I think that just really, well, I'll know it's clean and tidy and fresh for whatever I put in it. Okay, so I'll get on and cut the rest of my strips. Okay, so that didn't go exactly to plan. I only had enough for 3 sides, which left me with strips. So I just had to apply, so this is the bad side. I had to just apply it with strips. It's not the end of the world.
Can't really see.
Everywhere else looks fine. But that left me in a problem as well because I'd planned to do the lid with that as well. So what I've done is I've just done a charcoal grey, and the 2 colours that I really don't like, grey and white. So I've just done the inside a charcoal grey. I'm just going to let this dry because I want to seal it. And obviously then this is going to go on here. Now I taped off the edges. I didn't necessarily need to do that because once that inside grey's dried, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, all of this band around here, I'm going to get the charcoal grey that I mixed up, which is Athenian black and the original white. This is original, Annie Sloane's original white. That's what the name of this. It's a slightly off-whitey white. It's not a glaringly white, but it's a nice white, but it's not like old ochre, which has got more yellowy tones. It's a white. So I had some of that left over in this pot. I just added about the same amount. So let me see, maybe 3 tablespoonfuls of old white and maybe 2 tablespoonfuls of Athenian black, and it made me this charcoal colour. But we will make our own wax for around here because this has already been sealed. With sealer, we might put some dark wax on it. I don't want to age it up too much. I still want to stamp out this part here that says the botanist, because I want to try and make it look like it's a frame around it, but like a sort of this is what it's about kind of thing. So I'm going to frame that out, and I still need to, I'll use the same charcoal grey to paint the legs to get the stripes on the legs. We're kind of inching closer. For being such a small project, it seems to be taking quite a long time, but I don't think this is going to be a long video. So when you open it up, you're going to see the grey. I might have to deal with that. That's a big surface of grey. I might have to put something on that, but we'll see see as we go, and I want a nice handle for here too. The room it's going into has got a lot of blue and white china, so I might get a blue and white handle and put that there. So I'm going to go and just let this, I'm going to flip this back round and just let this kind of dry off a bit, because I dried it off with the heat tool, and I'm always suspicious when that happens. If there's a little bit of this running under here, I'm not too worried, because we're going to, it's hard to tape up wicker, especially trim. We're going to do that with the grey and the wax, okay? So I've got the Courier stamp, which I am just going to stamp the top of my, well, it's the inside, so I need to go this way. This could potentially be upside down when I put it all back together. To be honest with you, I just didn't want a horrible sort of grey block to look at, so I thought I'll just use this stamp. I'm just applying my paint. This is paint I'm using, not ink, and I just applied it with a roller. So I'm just going to go across the whole of the piece, stamping. So I'll do this, and we'll get this dried, and we'll get the top of this sealed, because everything else has been sealed apart from this top. And once this is done, I'll get on to the next part. Okay, so I'm going to paint the feet now. Now, as you can see, I did go along and I painted all this white. I didn't do that. This was already sprayed from the previous bad spray job. I considered painting it all one solid colour, but if this was a piece of furniture that I was selling, I would paint this for sure. But tidying up round here has just made a huge amount of difference. Oh, helps if I put my paintbrush in the paint the right way. I haven't got my glasses on yet, so I mean, right, let's just do that. So when you've taped off, just do your last check. I always think it's good just to kind of make sure that you've got your tape on okay, and just where your tape isn't, tape it. I mean, paint it, not tape it. I'm already having one of those days where I can't identify even the lid. I couldn't even remember what the lid of this was called a minute ago. So I'm going to get on, and I will see my tassels on my shirts. Have you seen them?
Already ruined.
No, this has been ruined for such a long time, and I keep wearing it for painting because I like it. But these go in coffee, they go through dishwater, they're covered in paint. I don't know why.
They're very arty.
Yeah,
They're very arty.
and sometimes I go out like this, and I'm sure people are looking at the sleeves, but so I'm going to do this. I'm going to let them dry, flip it over. I'm also going to seal these while they're down here, so that the legs are all sealed. But that's all you do, and we'll get to pulling the tape off in a minute. So I'm just now very gently peeling the tape off my little legs here. It's sometimes hard to get a so I'll do that now, and I'll just seal them. Okay, it's a bit crooked, that one. Okay, so that's his little stripy feet done. And now what I'm doing is I'm taking some of this grey paint. Now you can make up wax with paint, especially Annie Sloan paint. I don't know about other varieties, but and what I'm doing now is I'm just taking a little bit more wax out of here. I'm going to need quite a bit more than that, so let's be kind of generous and take. And I'm just going to show you while I'm in here. When my paintbrushes break, and there's nothing wrong with this, what I do is I keep these in the tin along with my wax, and everything's good to go when I want to use it. Now, I have quite a generous amount of wax here, and I want to add this grey paint. I want to make a grey wax. You just mix it through, just make sure it's all mixed through. You won't need much of this, it's just to go along the details. Now, there's a little bit of me that says I should tape off the white and just go along the grey, but you know what? I'm not gonna.
Fortune favours the bold.
Fortune favours the bold. Now, you want to get rid of as much excess off of that as you can, especially up the sides of your brushes. You don't want that. Now, this is the type of brush I'm using. It is an acrylic paintbrush. It's quite wiry. It's got a little bit of give in it, and I'm using this because it's quite sturdy, and it should hopefully get into my little parts of my trim here. So I am just going to literally, so that it kind of sits in the trim like this, all the way around my trim. It's just to kind of frame everything off. I could have painted it dark, but I don't want anything as heavy as that. So sometimes it's good just to kind of make your own waxes, especially if you want stuff to sit in details. This is quite a good way of doing it. And it's always, I think, quite subtle. And I know that's not in my vocabulary, but let's face it, today we've used white, which is a colour I'll never use. We've used grey, which I don't even like. But so here we have it. But and you know the irony is for my own home. I'm not selling the colour revolution here, am I?
You've got the excuse of it was a customer.
No, I can't even say it was a custom order. It is for me. So, but as I said, it will match really nicely. Can you see what that's done, Martin? Are you getting in all the detail there? That'll just set up nicely. Now, remember, we spray sealed this whole piece, and this is just kind of set off the detail. It just kind of give it a little bit of extra zhuzh. So I'm going to go around all the trim, all the side trim and the back, and then we'll come in with the top. We'll do our stamping round our lettering at the top that I want to finish off. And then we'll do this with the top trim. Martin will pop it all back together. Actually, I'll do the stamping and then we'll get Martin to pop it back together, and then I'll do this wax and then we will be done. So I'll just get on and do it. Now, I'm just going to put a wee frame round this part here. I'm using the IOD Adornment stamp. This is how it looks. It's got lots of little sort of edges and corners and flourishes and lots of bells and whistles that I quite enjoy. Haven't used it much yet, so maybe we should do a video on this stamp at some point. That would be quite interesting. Anyway, that's irrelevant because this is the one that I'm using, this one here. When you're cutting these out, I just want to show you something. Oh, I put that the wrong way around. Hang on, there's pieces of masking tape stuck to this. These are very tight and close together, especially these ones, but sometimes with borders it's good to keep the plastic on. If it's something that you're going to go around corners or it's big, I wouldn't worry. But if you want to keep these together, they're really hard to cut. So bend your plastic, bend it, and then cut up this plastic part here. I mean, I think maybe, you know, sometimes, you know, just inking one side up and doing it that way, but you need to really bend them to cut them out. And that's what I did with this one that I wanted to use. I bent it so I could cut up the side. Now I've got a big mark on there because I put my ink upside down on that. I could weep, but never mind, I'm not going to. I'm just going to use the other side of this right now. You have no idea, right? For you, this hasn't been a particularly long video. See, for Martin and I, this video has been going on for ages and ages and ages, and we're still at it. I'm going to do this side first. Don't know why. Sorry, Martin. It's just to make it more difficult. I don't know why. I just felt this part here needed something, and this is what it's getting. So the surface up here is not exactly flat either. So I'm just going to do this all the way around here and at the bottom. I'll see if I can get it in at the top as well. Now the wax, I've done all the wax. I just have this rim here to do now. I've done the waxing around everywhere else, and what I've done is I've kind of put it sort of loosely in the edges. I didn't show you that in camera, but you'll see when Martin pans out later, just to kind of grubby it up a little bit. Martin's put a handle on now. The handle should really be in the lid, not this part here, but it was going to have to be one that's screwed in, and I didn't have anything that I liked, and my room it's going in is blue and white china, so I got Martin to put me this in the front, and when myself or my kids use it, they'll just lift it up like that. Martin debated it didn't need one at all, but I just wanted a bit of a flourish, so that's on there. Okay, so I'm going to go and stamp around this border, wax up this edge, and we'll get to staging. Okay, so can you apply inlays to wicker? Yes, you most certainly can. What did I learn about it? Take your time. I think if I had to say one thing, I think maybe I kind of overcompensated with the paint to apply mine, although I didn't do it too much that it smeared the actual inlay, but it did kind of, as this part was drying, pull some of the paint back out the wicker. Now it had 2 solid coats and they were dry in between, so it didn't pull any of the paint out of the wicker, but it did leave little sort of divots. Now I would have to look really, really close to see it, and in fact it's not really that noticeable, but just be mindful that not too much paint is pulling in between the divots of the wicker. Was it easy to do? Yeah. Has this been saved from landfill? It's no longer going in a hole in the ground. It's going into my hall. 2 coats of paint, spray sealer, because it's inlays, remember. You can seal with a brush, but you have to be quite quick and quite gentle. You can also get a small spray bottle and you can do a kind of, not quite 50-50, a wee bit more sealer to water and put it on and squish them that way. Giving them that way, that means you're not rubbing over them because it's live chalk paint and you will just smear them. So you have to be mindful of that. So because it was Wicker, I just spray sealed the whole thing. That enabled me then to make my own wax, which was the grey chalk paint, which was Athenian black and original white. I made a grey for the inside lid and the legs, and what was left over, I just added Annie Sloan's wax, which you can make coloured wax with any paint. I did apply the courier stamp on upside down. If this had been for a customer, I would have had to redo it, but I didn't have to because it's just for me. And every time I open it, it'll make me giggle, so it's fine. You can have a wee giggle at the end when you see it upside down. Legs were then sealed. This is a faux handle. You'll have to lift it by here. And that's really been it for today. It's not really been that difficult for you. This has been quite a quick video. For Martin and I, this has gone on forever and a day. Not because the project was particularly difficult, it's just there were so many life events in between. So we're glad it's done. For the subscriber that asked me, they'd watched to the end because they wanted to see the pink tassel that I dyed. This was the cream one that I dyed in the video last week. All sealed. You can see it's still tassely. It's still got all its movement. It's not crusty. It's not hard. This top trim is always the one that contains more nylon. The more nylon things contain, the less likely they are to dye. So when I'm applying this onto something now, I'll just put a tiny little bit of ribbon across there. But it's now reusable and it's a lovely shade of dusky pink. So there you go. So that's another recycling little tip. Dye your tassels. Oh dear. It's a whole wrong channel now. I've been let off for me by Marley. Please don't forget to give me a like, a thumbs up, share it. Don't forget to subscribe. Martin and I, say hello, Martin.
Hello.
The lovely Martin.
Hello.
We will be back next Sunday with another furniture makeover.